and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about series. More specifically, I'm going to talk about series that I need to continue. So basically the books I'm going to talk about today, or like the series I'm going to talk about today, are series where I've read one or more book and that have more books out that I've yet to read. So I'm not going to talk about series that are ongoing, but where I've read everything that's been published so far. I'm also not going to include a series that I'm rereading in its entirety. I think I've only had like one of those anyway. And I'm also not going to talk about romance books or like romance series, because I tend to read a lot of first books in romance series and then I'm undecided about whether or not I continue. And also like those series tend to have like different main characters in each book anyway, so there's not like any rush, so I'm not going to talk about those. And I'm also only going to talk about series that I actually mean to continue. Like if I read the first book in the series but I'm like unsure about whether I'll continue it, or I know for sure that I'm not going to read more books in that series, I'm not going to mention it here. So these are all like series that I actually plan to continue. So I have put these series into different categories, so to speak. I have a series that I'm like currently working on or like actively reading, and that I like plan to read the next book of like very soon. Then I have some series that I have started and I mean to continue, but it's so long since I read the first book of that series that I plan to reread that book before I continue, so I'm not really in any rush to continue these right now. And then I have some series that I'm a little bit more laid back about, that I am like actively reading, but I may take longer between books, and like I'll explain that more when I get to those series. So let's just get into the series that I'm going to talk about today. The first one is a series that I'm like currently reading, like I'm reading a book in that series right now. And that is the Shadowhunter universe by Cassandra Clare. So I have the book I'm currently reading, which is Lord of Shadows, like 60 pages into it, so I barely started it. And I also have another series in that universe that I'm currently reading, and that is The Red Scrolls of Magic. Or the first book is The Red Scrolls of Magic. The series is actually called The Eldest Curses, and this is The Dark Artifices. I tend to think about all the Shadowhunter books as one series, which is why I'm like talking about these together. So this is a trilogy. I'm, like I said, currently reading the second book. This is, I don't know how many books there's gonna be in this. I think maybe this will be a trilogy at 2. But this is the first book, I've read it, and the second book is out, but I don't own it. So I don't know when I'll continue this series. I hope kind of soon. But this one, like I said, I'm currently reading this book, and I plan to hopefully finish this trilogy before the end of the year. Then we have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which I've just read the first book of. I think this series is just called Skyward as well. So this series currently has 2 books out, and the second book is called Starsight, I think, and I own that one too, so I do intend to continue it really soon. This is a YA sci-fi series, and I don't know how many books there are going to be, but like I said, there's one more book out, and I will hopefully read it within the next few months, I think. Then we have this series by George R.R. Martin, which I always forget what the series is called. I tend to call it Game of Thrones. That is the first book. It's actually called A Song of Ice and Fire. So this is the first book. It's like this tiny edition with like the tiniest font I've ever seen, I think. Like these are smaller. I have the regular edition here as well, and like there's quite a big difference in these. So maybe I'll, like I have all the books I have in this series are this size, and then I have for some reason I have this small one in the first book. But anyway, this I've already talked about in my TBR for the month of October, because I'm going to read the part 1 of the 3rd book this month. But anyway, this is a adult epic fantasy series, and I can't remember how many books there are out. Is there like 5 maybe? 5 or 6 I think. So like I said, I'm up to book 3 in the series, and it's like I mentioned in my TBR video, it's taken me forever to read it, but I plan to sort of make more of an effort from now on to read the books a bit quicker. So hopefully I will get through the books that have been published in like a reasonable time. I do think I'm going to need some breaks between books, because they are huge and they are intense and very like packed. But yeah, I'm going to make more of an effort with this series. So I hope to read the books that are out maybe in the next year or 2, like I'm going to tentatively say that, but we'll see. I'm definitely not going to go as long between the books as I've had up until now. And then we have The Diviners by Libba Bray, which again, I think this series is also just called The Diviners. So this series has 4 books out. It's finished. Everything's been published, I think, in the series. I own the first 2 books. I have ordered the 3rd one, and I plan to hopefully finish this series maybe sometime next year. So I read this first book in August, I think it was, and then I hope to read the next book soon, maybe November. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So yeah, this is a YA paranormal series that I really enjoyed the first book of. So yeah, looking forward to continue this one. If you notice me like move around in the frame as I'm filming this, is because I'm sort of going back and forth, and because I am making dinner as I'm filming this. So I'm sort of like checking on the potatoes and stuff. Because you have to multitask, especially because it's sort of getting darker in the afternoons now, and I need to film while there's still light outside, and I also need to make dinner because I'm hungry. So yeah, anyway, let's move on to the next category of series that I have, which I said are series that I am currently reading, and I have read the first book of, but it's been a while, so I plan to reread the first book in the series before I continue, so therefore I'm not like in any rush to continue this series. So there are 4 of these. The first one is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. No, it's not called Red Sister. I think this is called The Book of the Ancestor. Let me check my computer. Yes, this series is called The Book of the Ancestor. It's by Mark Lawrence. So this is the first book, Red Sister. I also own the second book, which is Grey Sister, I think. I think there are 3 books altogether in this trilogy. I may be wrong, there may be more, but I think there's 3. So like I said, I read this a while ago. Actually it hasn't been that long. I think I read this in the beginning of last year. But I've sort of been like not rushing to continue it, because I decided a while ago that I would reread the first book before I continued. So I have no idea when I'll read the next book or reread this book and then continue. Maybe sometime next year. Like I said, I'm not really in any rush to do that. And the same with, well, this one, it's so long since I started that I do hope to continue it soon. But that is the Simon Snow series by Rainbow Rowell. This book is Carry On, and the second book is Wayward Son. And Wayward Son came out this year, I think. So when I read this, which was back in like I think maybe 2016, it's been a while. So when I read this, I thought it was a standalone, and I think maybe it was written as a standalone as well. But then Wayward Son came out this year, so now I feel like I should reread this one before I continue with Wayward Son. So this is a YA fantasy, and it's very like Harry Potter based, I guess. I don't really know like the intention, if it was meant to be like a Harry Potter inspired series or if it just turned out this way. But like it's a Harry Potter inspired series with like a male pairing in the center. So it's basically about Simon Snow and his adventures in a magical school. I don't remember details about this, but I loved it when I read it. I think I gave this book 5 stars, so I'm curious to see, now that I've read a lot more, and a lot more fantasy, and a lot more YA fantasy, if I'll feel the same way about this. But yeah, I really loved it when I first read it, so hopefully I'll still feel the same way about it. So yeah, I have no idea when I'll continue this, and when I'll reread the first book, but hopefully it won't be too long. And then we have it's just called Assassin's Apprentice. It's by Robin Hobb. This is like a huge universe with multiple series. This first series is called, I think, the Farseer trilogy. It's the Farseer trilogy. And then I think there are multiple like trilogies that are set in the same universe, but we're sort of following like different characters and different storylines. So I read this book, which is the first book in the first trilogy. I think I read it like 2 years ago. I liked it, I didn't love it, but I keep hearing everyone is saying that this series or this universe only gets better and better. So for that reason I do want to continue, and I'm excited to continue as well. But because it's been a while, I do want to reread this book first. So this is a adult high fantasy, and this first trilogy is about in this book he's a young boy, his name is Fitz, and I think the other books in the trilogy follow him when he's older, or when he's an adult. So like I said, I enjoyed this book, but I didn't love it, but for some reason I'm really excited to reread this, just because like even just 2 years back I've read so much more fantasy now, so I wonder if I'll feel differently about it, because one of the reasons why I didn't love this was it's just because it was kind of dense, and it was kind of slow as far as I can remember it, and like it took me a little while to get into it and stuff like that. And I think one of the reasons for that may be just because I wasn't used to reading like a high fantasy in English. So maybe I will feel a little differently about it now. And also, like, just because I plan to start this over before I continue, I'm not really in any rush to continue this. But I am kind of excited to read it, because there's been a lot of people on BookTube lately that's been reading this series, and that's made me excited to read it as well. But I am going to like finish some of the other series I'm currently reading before starting this one over, because like I said, it's a huge series. So yeah, but very excited to continue this. And then we have a series that I don't think I've ever heard people talk about on BookTube, but that was very popular, at least here in Norway, when it came out a few years ago. And that is this series by Elena Ferrante. It's called, in English it's called, I have to consult my computer here. Yeah, it's called the Neapolitan Novels by Elena Ferrante. The first book is in English, My Brilliant Friend. I have the Norwegian edition, and these were originally written in Italian. So I have the Norwegian translation of these. And this is a 4-book series, and I actually own all the books, but I've only read this first one. And I read this book, I think maybe in the beginning of, I remember I read it in January of, I think it must have been 2017. So it's been a while, which is why I want to reread this book before I read the other 3 books in the series. But I really enjoyed it when I read this. It's about 2 best friends, 2 girls who are best friends, and they grow up in a I don't know the English name of this city. It's called Napoli in Norwegian. I think maybe that's what it's called in Italian as well. So they grow up in a really poor neighborhood, and it's basically this first book is basically about them growing up. I don't remember many details about this at all, which is why I want to reread the first book before I continue. But it's historical fiction, I guess you can, yeah, it's historical fiction. And like I said, I really enjoyed this first book and I am excited to continue the series. But again, because I plan to reread this first book, I'm not really in any rush to do that, so I don't know when it will be. But hopefully it won't take me too long to get back to this. But yeah, like I said, I don't hear about this really on BookTube at all. But yeah, it was super popular here and I feel like it still is. So yeah, excited to continue this. And then finally, I have two series that I am like actively reading, but I'm not in any rush to read the books, just because these books they kind of work as standalones, so I don't really need to read them like soon after one another. And they're both mystery series, I guess, mystery thriller type series. One of them is Norwegian and the other one is Danish. The first one is the Harry Hole series by Jo Nesbø. So this is a Norwegian series, so I have obviously the Norwegian editions. This book is the next one I'm reading, which is in English this title would be Police. I don't know if that's the translation or if that's the title of the translation, but like directly translated it would be Police. So the reason, like I said, that I'm not really rushing to continue this is just because like we're following the same characters, but there's a new story in every book, like there often are in mystery series. So I feel like I'll quickly get into it when I continue, even though it's been a while. So I typically read like maybe one or maybe two books in the series every year, usually just one. So this is book number 10 in the series, I think, and I think there are 12 books out. So I have 3 books in this series that I haven't read. I own all those 3 books, so like I could really just read them at any time, but these are books that are just like they're very easy for me to read. So I tend to like pick up one of these books when I'm just in the mood to read something that is kind of easy for me to read. And I also really enjoy these books. And I also like, I think this is one of my favorite like mystery thriller series. I think Jo Nesbø just writes such great mysteries. So when I'm just in the mood to read like a good, engaging mystery, but that are easy for me to read, I will pick up one of these books. And the other series that I'm going to talk about is sort of in the same category, and that is the Department Q series by Jussi Adler-Olsen. Like I said, that's a Danish series, and I don't own that one. I'm borrowing those books from my mom, who also liked that series. So in that series, I've read 6 books so far, and I think there are 8 so far. I assume there will be more books in that series. But again, like I'm not in any rush to continue because we're following the same characters, but there's also always a new story. So also with that series, I tend to read maybe 1 book a year, and I'll probably continue to do that. So like I am reading it, but like I'm not in any kind of rush, or I'm not like prioritizing that series. So that was all the series that I plan to talk about today. I feel like I might have forgotten some series. I feel like as soon as I sit down to edit this video, I'll probably remember 1 or 2 more series that I should have mentioned. But these were all that I could think of right now. I also plan to hopefully soon make another video where I'll talk about series that I own the first book of, but that I haven't actually started yet. And I feel like that video is going to be longer than this one, because I feel like I have a lot of series where I own the first book, but that I haven't yet started. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to make that video soon. So I think that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!